Welcome back to Outside Views, and let's just say together, Brexit is a monumental disaster. It's not a debatable point anymore, it's an established fact of British life, like the relentless drizzle or the enduring absurdity of the political class. And yet, here we are, watching the current government, a new one, supposedly cleaner, supposedly wiser, not trying really to fix the mess, but actively trying to make it worse at the moment. The Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, finally had to admit the truth, which is a massive political shift in itself. I talked about that yesterday. And she told Sky News, there is no doubt that the impact of Brexit has been severe and long-lasting. Yeah, severe and long-lasting. And that admission coming from a sitting Chancellor is a damning indictment of the entire project. And for years the political strategy was all about seizing the mythical opportunities of Brexit, making it work, and generally pretending that leaving the world's largest single market was a brilliant move. But now, reality has bitten so hard that the mask has slipped. And the government knows the polls are showing support for Brexit is at an all-time low. But here's the most cynical part. They see the high support for Mr. Brexit himself, Nigel Farage, and they think they can play his game. Their strategy now is a pathetic attempt to link the economic stagnation directly to Farage, as if the man who never held a proper government office is somehow more to blame than the two major parties who actually forced Brexit through and have maintained it since. It's an incoherent mess of political cowardice. If Brexit is the poison, then the parties that administered the dose and keep the patient on the same lethal prescriptions are the ones truly responsible. I know I was nice to Labour yesterday, because this was one first step. But on this channel, knowing what's going on there, I have to take it a step further than they are daring to go. And let's not forget the other goal of the sudden admission of economic severity, paving the way for inevitable tax rises in Reeves' upcoming budget. They are preparing the public for pain, but they are still too terrified to touch the real cause of the sickness. The absolute jaw-dropping central problem is this. If Brexit has been such a disaster, and it unequivocally has, then why is this government still so fanatically committed to upholding its most damaging aspects? The Prime Minister insists he will never in his lifetime rejoin the European Union. I know, I made a lot of videos about this. Just rejoining is not that easy. They would have to join the European Union one more time, which is something completely different and complicated. But he has categorically ruled out re-entry into the EU. And this isn't just caution, it's an act of national economic self-harm. The EU, sorry to say that, I see a lot of countries that do not want the UK to join the EU again. And that would be a major bump in the road if they ever try to. But, yeah. Yes, there have been some minor, almost insulting tweaks to the UK-EU relationship. And we are seeing a slight, gradual, painfully slow shift towards a more internationalist position. And Reeves' comments are a part of that. But when it comes to the major, meaningful moves that would actually revive Britain's stagnant economy, the government remains firmly entrenched in the Brexit mud, paralyzed by a fear of Farage and the populist press. We know exactly why Brexit has been an economic disaster. The evidence is glaringly, overwhelmingly clear. It is the self-imposed friction on trade by shutting off the UK from its primary, most convenient economic partners in Europe. And this friction acts as a permanent, unnecessary tax on British business and a burden shifted directly onto UK consumers. And experts agree that one of the main reasons inflation remains so stubbornly high in the UK compared to the rest of the European Union or the rest of the G7 is precisely because of these additional trade and labour costs. Let's look at all the numbers because they tell the story better than any politician. As of the midpoint of 2025, the UK's consumer price index inflation rate stood at around 3.8% in July and August, holding steady. Compare that to the euro area, where the inflation rate has been far more contained, sitting around the target 2.0% in August 2025. That nearly 2-point gap is not an accident or a coincidence. It is the price of Brexit's economic friction amplified. The fall in the value of the pound immediately following the vote, combined with the catastrophic impact of depriving British companies of a readily available skilled European workforce, has embedded inflation into the economy's foundations. For instance, UK private sector pay growth was running at an estimated 5.5% in early 2025, significantly higher than the euro area's 3.8%. While that might sound good, it's a symptom of a tight, expensive labor market struggling with shortages and persistent services inflation. It is a contributing factor that keeps the inflation differential with the EU stubbornly wide. The obvious staring us in the face solution is to remove those inflationary barriers. That would mean rejoining the single market and the customs union, which is almost impossible, I know that, without joining the EU again, or at the very least radically relaxing the restrictions on European citizens coming to live and work in the UK and vice versa. This would not only provide a massive immediate boost to the economy, but would also throw a much-needed lifeline to Britain's public services, which are absolutely crippled by staff shortages. However, it's overwhelmingly clear that the government is not going to adopt this logical strategy. In fact, they are determined to do the opposite. They are intent on even making Brexit worse. Look no further than the new Home Secretary's utterly baffling and self-defeating announcement, making it even harder for migrants to live and work in the UK. The specific tangible new hurdle is the requirement for new arrivals on key visas, like the skilled workers, scale-up and high-potential individual routes, to demonstrate an A-level standard of English proficiency. This is a hike from the previous B1 standard, which was roughly equivalent to a GCSE. So, migrants now need to speak better English than quite a number of citizens in the UK. And the new requirement, known as B2 level on the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, will come into force from January 8th in 2026. And to even take the required secure English language test, applicants must spend a significant non-refundable fee, with a B1 level test already costing around £150, and the cost for the new higher B2 test likely to be similar or more. All of this is happening in the very same week that the government insists it wants to get Britain building again. And the incoherence is staggering. It's visible from the far side of the English Channel. Trying to build your way out of a deep economic hole with ambitious housing and infrastructure goals, while simultaneously making it actively harder for construction companies to hire the workers required to do the actual building. This is a masterpiece of failure. The UK construction sector is a perfect case study in Brexit's economic vandalism. The cessation of free movement has created profound labor shortages, driving up project costs. And according to reports, construction material costs in the UK rose by an astronomical 60% between 2015 and 2022, compared to an average of just 35% in the EU. The cost of labor in Britain's construction sector also soared by an estimated 30% over that period, double the rate seen in countries like Denmark and the Netherlands. And this isn't just background noise. It's a direct, measurable consequence of the Brexit policy choice. The new visa restrictions, the higher salary thresholds for skilled workers, now set at £41,700 per year, or the going rate, which is even higher sometimes, and this new completely unnecessary A-level English requirement will simply intensify these labor market pressures. It is not making Brexit work, which is a stupid sentence anyway. It is, with deliberate and frightening clarity, making Brexit even worse. And I didn't even know that is possible. The government strategy is a desperate, short-sighted race to the bottom, attempting to out-Farage, sacrificing the economy at the altar of anti-immigration sentiment. And Rachel Reeves' admission that the impact has been severe and long-lasting is a welcome, though long overdue, acknowledgement of reality, as I said yesterday. But that acknowledgement means nothing, absolutely nothing, if the government does not take the obvious and necessary steps to solve the problem. And the very first step, the foundational requirement for any kind of future recovery, is to stop making matters actively worse. That means abandoning this pathetic economy-sapping race to match the damaging immigration policies of the men who, let's be honest, merely lit the fuse of the Brexit bomb in the first place. Until this government finds the political courage to stop copying the Reform UK playbook and actually addresses the core economic friction of being outside the EU, the severe and long-lasting damage identified by the Chancellor will not just persist, it will just keep on getting worse. The British people deserve a government with a vision to fix its mistakes, not one that doubles down on their worst elements out of pure, craven political fear. The current course is utterly unsustainable, illogical, and fundamentally unfair to every citizen whose living standards are being deliberately degraded by this policy of making a disaster just a little bit more disastrous. Looking forward to your comments on this move, and if you want to see another outside view right now, the next one is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.